Everyone knows that you should never look a gift horse in the mouth, and certainly not if you don't have anything of your own and are gifted an entire house. But a drifter from Canada was quite astonished when he received this special gift. At first, it looked like a wreck, but the house was hiding something from the man he had never expected to find. When the drifter received a phone call from the government, he couldn't believe his ears. How could this old, dilapidated house be worth so much? He was stunned when he heard the story of the government employee. "I never thought this house was so special," he later told reporters. Curious about what makes this house so special? Keep watching. For this special house's story, we have to go back in time to when the house was still inhabited by an old woman named Mia Ellis. Then 89 Mia lived there as long as she could remember. But at 89 years old, she was far too old to maintain it. Her husband had died, and she didn't have any children all alone. She lived in the big house that slowly crumbled beneath her. It was far too big a task to take care of the house. Mia could hardly take care of herself anymore, but this changed one day. Mia woke up one night when she heard a stumbling noise in the living room. She quickly climbed out of bed and grabbed her husband's shotgun that she had always kept in the room and slowly shuffled down the stairs. "Who's there?" she shouted in a hoarse voice. No answer, but when she moved towards the sound, she suddenly heard another. This time it came from the kitchen. With one quick movement, she stood in the doorway. "Tell me who you are, or I'll shoot you right now," she shouted, her gun aimed at the shadow in the corner of the kitchen. "Don't shoot me, please." A begging voice sounded from the corner. "I was just looking for a place to spend the night. I'm homeless." Mia lowered her husband's gun slowly. She turned on the light and took a good look at the shape in the kitchen. It turned out to be a young man. "Now tell me why you're living on the streets." The two of them talked all night long. Scott turned out to have been a drug addict and had lost everything. His job, his wife, his house, everything. But when he tried to get back on track, it didn't turn out to be that easy. He struggled with all kinds of psychological issues because of his past, so he couldn't hold down a job. When he broke into Mia's house, he was just looking for a warm place to sleep. He didn't want to steal anything or harm anyone. Mia listened with interest to the man while he talked about his past. And when he was finished, she made him a very special offer. When he broke into Mia's house, he was just looking for a warm place to sleep. He didn't want to steal anything or harm anyone. Mia listened with interest to the man while he talked about his past. And when he was finished, she made him a very special offer. She offered him board and lodging if he'd help her with a household. By now, Mia was so old that she couldn't do it all by herself anymore. Scott gratefully accepted the proposal, and that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. For a year, Scott helped her with everything in the household. He did the shopping, cleaned, cooked, and supported Mia when she had trouble walking. The friendship between the two grew stronger and stronger, and they enjoyed each other's company every day. But then, fate struck. When Mia died at 90 years of age, Scott didn't know what to do with his grief. Unhappy as he was, he wandered through the big house, where everything reminded him of the woman who'd been there for him when no one else was. For a moment, he even thought about picking up his old habits again, but then he remembered what Mia had said. "A young man like you shouldn't put that junk in his body. You're way too good for that." This put a smile on his face for the first time in months, and he decided to take the plunge. He'd been avoiding Mia's room all this time for fear of being overwhelmed by grief, but now he knew he could handle it. Slowly, he opened the door to Mia's old room, and then suddenly he saw something very special. There was a letter on the bedside table with a document next to it. When he picked up the letter, he saw that it was addressed to him. "Dear Scott, I enjoyed our time together and wish I could stay with you even longer, but my body won't let me. I hope you enjoyed the past year as much as I did because you deserve it. You're a good man, although you may not always see that for yourself. Now don't get upset because that's nonsense. I've had a wonderful life. That's why I left you my last possession, my house and everything in it. It's not much, and it's quite dilapidated, but I know that you'll make something beautiful of it, so it's yours. So long, dear boy. Love, your friend Maya. With tears in his eyes, he read the letter, and then it was time to look at the document. The document turned out to be Mia's will. In it, she had officially left him the house and everything in it. It was a small comfort for his loss, but Scott nevertheless was very grateful. This was the house where he'd become happy again, where he'd come back to life, and he wanted to stay there forever. He held the letter to his chest and hugged it for several minutes. It was as if the piece of paper held a piece of Mia in it. Of course, not literally, but it was her handwriting. But when he was busy one day in the backyard, he received a very special phone call. The call came from the government, and Scott could hardly believe what he was told. The old, dilapidated house he had inherited had once belonged to a world-famous Canadian writer, and Maya had been his great-granddaughter. And that wasn't all. They wanted to completely renovate the house and then open it up to the public. Scott, as the only heir, would receive a small monthly fee for this. When Scott heard this, he almost fell back in amazement. He decided to accept the offer, but gave it a very special twist. As a tribute to his dearest friend, he had an old photo of Maya printed in large format and hung it up in the hall, where all visitors to the house could see it. He also stayed in the house himself, where he made many, many happy memories. And eventually, he even met the woman of his dreams in the same house. She visited the house out of interest for the writer, but eventually stayed for Scott. As you can see, no matter how bad things get, it's never too late to start living. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed our today's story. If so, leave us a like and tell us something similar that happened to you. Also consider subscribing to our lovely channel. We upload daily worldwide stories.